Good afternoon and welcome to today's Planning Committee. This is not a public meeting, but a meeting the public can attend. I'm Councillor Susan Durant, Chair of the Planning Committee. Before we commence, I'd like to outline the domestic arrangements for the meeting. We're not expecting a fire practice today. If the fire alarm sounds, please leave the building by way of the chamber on my right. When you've left the chamber, proceed down the stairway and exit through the emergency exit on the ground floor. If there is anybody with mobility issues, please wait in the refuge area at the top of the stairs, where the emergency evacuation lift is located, and use the intercom situated to the left-hand side of the lift doors to call for assistance. The designated assembly point is in the public square in front of CAS beyond the fountain, and I'd like to inform members of the public and press that today's meeting will be audio-visually recorded. By entering the council chamber, you accept that you will be recorded and your images retained and broadcast by the council on its website and on YouTube. If anyone intends to record or film any part of today's meeting, please ensure that this does not disturb the conduct of the meeting and you only focus on recording those people participating. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched to silent mode. May I remind anyone speaking in the meeting that you will need to press the large red button underneath the microphone and ensure that the red light is illuminated. This will ensure that you are recorded. The meeting is proceeding today on the basis that all members of the committee have read their agenda papers thoroughly and are aware of what they will be considering today. If any members of the committee leave the chamber during consideration of an application, they should ensure that they do not take part in the vote on their return, as they will have not heard all the relevant information on that particular item. Thank you. Item 1 is apologies for absence. We've received apologies from Councillors Amy Dixon, Sophie Liu, Andy Pickering, Emma Muddyman-Rawlins, Gary Stapleton and Steve Cox. Are there any other apologies? Item 2 is exclusion of the public and press. There are no exempt items on today's agenda. Item 3, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? Councillor Beach?
Yes, I'm a member of the Norton Asken ward, item 4.
If you could complete a declaration form for me then, please. Item 4. Minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 9th of January 2024. Can the minutes be moved as a true and accurate record? Is that seconded? And is that agreed? Thank you. Item 5, so we're now up to the schedule of applications. Application number 1 is a planning application 23/02196/3 FULM, which is a full planning application for the remediation of land at Doncaster waterfront east and use of site for interim public open space at land of former gas holder Wharf Road in Wheatley. Dave Richard is the planning case officer that will introduce this item. Dave?
Thank you, Chair. It's a bit of a mouthful, that, isn't it? This application is being presented to Planning Committee because the City of Doncaster Council are the applicant. There's been no objections from members of the public, ward members or statutory consultees. We have Peter Wilson here from the Major Projects team who will be available to answer any questions should you wish to choose to ask them. Finally, just a note from the pre-committee amendments, the proposal would retain 350 parking spaces at the Chapel Drive East car park, not 300 spaces that's noted in paragraph 8.21 of the committee report. Levelling up funding has been secured to enable the site to be remediated and then to facilitate some temporary delivery of public open space. I guess a non-technical summary of the remediation proposal is that the site will be excavated to approximately a 2-metre depth. Soils and effluent will be treated, reused, left in situ, depending on the circumstances, and then all most likely removed from the site and taken to a licensed waste facility. There'll be no significant change in land levels across the site following the completion of the remediation works. The site will then be landscaped, as you can see, and open to the public as public open space. It's important to note that this would be a temporary arrangement, conditioned to be 5 years, but would ultimately depend on any redevelopment proposal that comes forward. The site would be open all year round but the council would reserve the right to close it should they wish to for maintenance or access purposes. In terms of the site allocation, it's entirely within the main urban area in the local plan, being within an employment policy area and also partly within a strategic allocation in the local plan for a mixed-use development. The allocation is one of the largest urban centre brownfield development sites in the UK and is obviously a priority regeneration area for Doncaster. This is a nice photo of Summer Waterfront. The site has got some significant socio and economic regeneration value based around obviously the waterfront location with canals and the marina. It's not currently been realised as well as its prime location close to the city centre. The site is currently underutilised with a mixture of public car parks, vacant land and small-scale industrial uses. The land has been, to put it politely, I guess, subject to antisocial behaviour, other skullduggery taking place given its vacant nature. There's some site-specific constraints as well, including the former routing of the River Don, which you can see there just about see it there. You see the ditch in sort of blue, as well as power utilities, water utilities, telecommunications and a gas main that runs through the site. This means that with the grant of any planning permission, there's a detailed planning condition number 4, which deals with remediating land around these areas that requires a bit more of a technical methodology in consultation with with statutory consultees. So the condition deals with, I guess, with more localised elements of remediation near these assets. Some planning considerations. So the principles of construction management and highway management have been agreed, and suitable controls for amenity issues such as noise, dust and so on, especially for the properties along the eastern side of the site, are reserved by planning condition 5. Once Peter is able to appoint a contractor for the works, and you can see by the number of grey hairs that's proving challenging, a detailed methodology will be submitted for approval. The contamination and remediation strategy has been agreed and has the support of statutory consultees. The site is at risk of flooding, but it's protected from flood defences in the wider area. The flood risk assessment, the FRA, concludes there'll be no flood risk overall, and it wouldn't increase risk elsewhere. Land levels, as I said, to the site will be retained at the current values, and again, the reports have been accepted by the Environment Agency and the Doncaster local drainage team. The biodiversity value of landscaping is obviously capped given the proposals are temporary in nature. Nevertheless, 20 trees are proposed in the site, and taking into advice what was said at Chair's briefing, they tried to be located in areas where there's perhaps more longevity, there's less likelihood they'll be removed, but ultimately the site could be subject to redevelopment at a later point. To deliver the biodiversity value, that's off-site, and that's through the Council's Habitat Bank. And you'll note there's been a recent decision through Cabinet to make alterations to the Habitat Bank to accommodate the waterfront development. Our highways and parking services have confirmed that the Chapel Drive East car park, which is sort of just outside the red line boundary and part of the western part of the area near Chapel Drive, where it says there, that will retain 350 spaces, and the parking survey has demonstrated that's sufficient to accommodate the demand from local markets and elsewhere. And then finally, the archaeological report has made it clear that there's been substantial works across the site in the past, which has sort of limited the potential for areas within the site. There are 2 areas near the drainage ditches where there's some limited potential, so the recommendation from South Yorkshire Archaeology Service is that a watching brief is undertaken with any remediation below a certain depth within those areas. And then the layout of the public open space has been coordinated with South Yorkshire Police, street scene, design and public space officers, and conditions would control the finer details. Although the waterfront site is an industrial site, so there's no listed buildings, the former pumping station is identified as a building with heritage interest. For the reference to Council Beach, we tried and failed to find any centrifugal pumps, as you can see from that photo in the bottom left. but the building will be expected to be retained as part of any future development. At this stage, it's proposed to be fence protected during the construction works, remediation works. So a bit of a high-level summary. There's been an extensive level of pre-application consultation Peter's done with, not only from us, but with key stakeholders such as the Environment Agency. The award of Levelling Up funding is a transformation opportunity to ensure that the site is remediated and to help prepare it for being development ready, if you like. Obviously, this is a key site for the council in the local plan and also within the city centre master plan that's emerging. There'll be some temporary disruption, but this is sought to be minimised. There'll be some benefit in providing some temporary open space, obviously, for the community, and overall complies with the development plan and is recommended for approval. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dave. Whilst there are no speakers for this item, Peter Wilson, the applicant, is available to answer any questions. Committee members, we're now going to go into debate. Does any member wish to comment on the report or ask the planning case officer a question? Councillor Hogarth and Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, just can you clarify how many car parking spaces will be lost? And bear in mind it's going to be initially for just, you know, leisure type thing, people walking, whatever. When they've done the parking surveys and that, have they catered for what additional parking needs are for the visitors to the area?
Chair, if I was right to direct that question to Peter, probably be able to answer it. You've seen the parking results.
So the Chapel Drive East car park is currently about 450 spaces, and through the council's parking services, they've done a historic analysis of how the car park is used and the number of spaces that are used on a regular basis. And use maxes out on days where there is market trading and also college days. And they experience kind of at the top end about 350 spaces in use at any one time, although that kind of it falls away on other days. So in agreement with parking services, we've reduced the car park from 450 to 350 spaces to make sure we can continue to supply the parking that's needed in the area. In terms of potential traffic generation for this usage, it's generally felt that it will be a attractor to the local community rather than a kind of a destination attraction for the borough. And generally, usage would be out of hours in an evening at weekends when car parking would be more available at the Chapel Drive East car park. So it's our proposal that any limited parking requirement arising from the interim landscaping scheme will be met through Chapel Drive East.
Councillor Anderson.
This could go to either of you. How are we going to advertise to the public that this is a temporary use? We had an application a few months ago where something allocated for residential hadn't been developed for some period of time. It became used as informal green space, and when a development did come along, it was met with substantial opposition and ill feeling. So I just want it to be very clear to the people who come to use this that it's going to be advertised as a temporary usage.
Okay, through obviously the statutory processes, including the planning process, we work with the planning case officer to make sure that the reports and approvals are themselves very clear as to the nature of the interim public open space. There'll also be signage delivered on site, which will kind of include things like the circumstances in which we choose to close the site, the temporary nature, health and safety matters, the treatment and safety around the water's edge. So there'll also be signage on site to kind of make sure that there's no ambiguity as to the interim nature of it.
Thanks.
Do we have any other questions? Thank you. Councillor Farmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. After the nearly 9 million awarded to renovate this site, is any of that money going towards the pumping station to, make it good?
So the remediation and kind of bringing back into use of the pumping station doesn't form part of this remediation stage of the project. For the time being, though, on the advice of the police, we'll be enclosing the the building in a anti-climb fence to try and stop the historic antisocial behaviour that's been experienced within the building, so sleeping and drug taking, and also working closely with street scene to make sure that the plant life that's growing out of the building that's deteriorating the structure is also maintained. But in terms of this stage of the project, no redevelopment of that building will take place. It's more about securing the asset for future availability.
Okay. Is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to conditions? Is there a mover, please? Is there a seconder? Can we have a show of hands in favour, please? Thank you. Therefore, that planning application has been granted. Application number 2 is planning application 23/01339/FUL. Erection of one dwelling and detached garage with associated landscaping at land at 24 Carr Lane in Bessica. Rebecca Lardy is the planning case officer that will introduce this item.
Thank you, Chair. Right, so this application is being presented to committee due to the level of public interest received. There's been 15 objections received from 8 different properties surrounding the site. The main concerns are loss of trees, the scale of the building, overlooking and overshadowing. Amendments have been received, and that is what I'm presenting today, the amended plans, and it's considered that they overcome these objections. So here is the site plan. The site is a plot located at the head of the cul-de-sac of Carr Lane. To the east of the site is a row of bungalows, and to the southern side of the site, there's black properties at the bottom there. They're 2-storey dwellings, part of a separate residential estate. So in terms of the siting of the dwelling, it's been repositioned so that separation distances are met. It's not considered to overlook or overshadow any of the neighbouring properties. Its position has been moved to ensure that those policies are met. Just move on to the next slide. In terms of the design, this is one of the main things that's been changed to ensure that it is sympathetic to the surrounding neighbours. So as I said before, the properties to the east were bungalows and the properties to the south side were 2-storey properties. So the amended design is considered to be a bit more reflective of the surrounding area, with the single-storey element on the side where the bungalows are, and then the 2-storey part of the dwelling on the west side, on the opposite side where the 2-storey properties are. So just for your information, here's some brief floor plans of the property. So it does meet all the NDSS standards in terms of the room sizes for the double bedrooms and the overall floor space for a 4-bedroom house. Here's just a proposed street scene drawing. So you can see there, as I mentioned before, with the bungalows on the right hand side and then the 2-storey property on the left. So it's sort of a little bit of a transition there from single-storey up to 2-storey. There is a garage proposed as well. That'll sit in the back of the site. It's single-storey and it's sort of set towards the very, very bottom of the neighbour's garden, so it's not considered to overshadow or cause any issues in that respect. This is also going to be classed as parking space, and there is other parking space within the site as well, so highways have got no objections in terms of that. I've just got some site photos here to show you sort of a picture from the street where the site is going to, where the site is, sorry, and where the property will be located as per the previous street scene. And some more photos there of the site. The existing access for 24 Carr Lane is going to be utilised to access this property as well. And a new garage is proposed for number 24, but that's subject to a separate application that's not actually being submitted But yeah, overall, there's no objections from any of the consultees. Drainage, ecology, and trees are all happy with the proposal subject to condition. And that's it really. Overall, it's considered to be in accordance with the development plan, and a recommendation of approval is made. That's the end.
Committee members, we're now going to go into debate. Does any member wish to comment on the report or ask a question? No? Okay, therefore, is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to conditions? Do we have a seconder? And do we have a show of hands of those in favour? Therefore, planning permission has been granted. Application number 3 is planning application 23/02313/FUL, erection of a single-storey rear extension to a house in multiple occupation at 1 Elm Green Lane in Conisbrough. Nicola Howarth is the planning case officer that will present this case.
It's not working. There we go. I think we're just waiting for Nicola. Amber. I don't know what he's come. He's come up with this. Oh my God, what's happened? I don't know. He's on the way. But where's her notes? Because she wanted her notes. I don't know. Like a slideshow. Where's the notes? I don't know. I don't know what she's done with the notes. Is that working? Where else if we do that? Wait, it doesn't show her notes. No, it doesn't. I don't know where her notes are. I don't even know where she is, to be honest. She's not coming. She is coming, but I don't know how you see the notes. Oh, she can see him on here. When is she? I think Dave's gone to get her. I think Dave's gone to get her. She's here. Oh, she's here. Why is it on a different screen?
Good afternoon, everyone. This application, it's a full planning application. It's for the erection of a single-storey rear extension to an existing and lawful house in multiple occupation. The premises has been a HMO for many years. There are no external alterations proposed to the front of the property. It's a single-storey, flat roof, L-shaped extension, measuring approximately 3 metres high, 6.5 metres wide and 8 metres at its maximum depth to the rear of the building. Render is proposed to the front-facing elevation facing onto Station Road, and there's also block to the side and rear elevations. The applicant is a charity based in Conisbrough called Wraparound Charity, who help people struggling with homelessness, addiction and rehabilitation. They support vulnerable people by helping them with accommodation and, if necessary, helping them register for support services. The extension is to basically create an activity room to enable them to, the staff and the residents to do enrichment activities and things like that. Also, as part of the extension is a small enclosed courtyard area. The courtyard is a light well, which will provide additional light to bedroom 8. And it's also to provide maintenance. It's not, there's no activities or anything like that will take place in it. The site, it's a large 2.5-storey detached property. It's located on an elevated corner on Elm Green Lane and Station Road. It's rendered, it's like a creamy grey render, and it's got a slated roof with mainly UPVC windows. It's set behind a tall retaining stone wall, and it has a lawned front and side garden. To the rear, where the extension is located, is a large paved area. At the rear of the property are it's a row of terrace cottages called Dale View, and it's numbers 1 to 5 whose gardens, it's mainly numbers 1 to 3 whose gardens back on to the application site, and also the side garden of number 7 Elm Green Lane backs onto the side. Oh, sorry. Oh, what is it?
Yeah, that's what we were doing.
Do you want me to repeat all that, or shall I go through?
Yeah, if you
Go
don't
through
mind,
it?
if you just
Okay.
go through it with the
Right.
visual.
The site is a large detached 2.5-storey property. It's elevated. It's on an elevated corner position on Elm Green Lane and Station Road. It's rendered and roof slated with mainly UPVC windows. It's set behind a tall retaining wall, stone wall, with a lawned front garden to the front and the side. To the rear of the site, there's a number of cottages, Dale View, numbers 1 to 3 mainly back onto the rear courtyard area of the application site, and the neighbour to the side is number 7 Elm Green Lane, and their rear side garden borders the rear of the property as well. Right, the site lies within residential policy area within the adopted local plan. Opposite the site lies the extended conservation area boundary that runs along the front of the Dale. In terms of the principle of development, policy 10 of the local plan supports residential development in principle, provided that it does not adversely affect the character of the area or detrimentally affect neighbouring properties through, for example, excessive overshadowing, overdominance or loss of privacy. In respect of the large HMO use, this has already been established with the granting of a lawful development certificate for the whole of the premises as a 15-bed house in multiple occupancy. That was granted in 2023. There is also an existing HMO licence for the premises. Sorry about that. In terms of scale, visual and amenity impacts, it's obviously at the rear of the property and it's also single storey with a flat roof. It's relatively low level with windows facing inwards towards Station Road, and there are boundary retaining walls approximately 1.8 metres high along the rear boundary, so it won't really create any issues in terms of overlooking or overshadowing or being over dominant. Whilst the design of the extension is flat roofed and it doesn't fully reflect the design features of the property, its low level will have less of an impact in terms of neighbour visual amenity. And being at the rear corner of the property, it will not harm the overall street scene. The chosen build materials rendered to the front and fair face block to the other elevations are generally in keeping with the existing varied character of the area. The Conservation Officer has not objected to the design, subject to landscaping being provided and materials being conditioned. In respect of noise, the development does not increase the number of residents for staff, therefore it's not expected that there'll be any increase in noise associated with the HMO use itself. The standard of the accommodation overall is considered to be enhanced for the residents by the provision of the extension. The premises is already licensed and the Environmental Health Officer has made no objection. The extension will take up some of the rear hard standing, which is currently used for car parking, but CDC Highways are satisfied that there'll be sufficient car parking provision on site for the staff. So overall, it's not considered to cause significant harm to visual or residential amenity. The planting details, these have been submitted at the request of the Conservation Officer. As you can see, it shows some hedging and a couple of trees on the side garden area. This is just to provide, obviously once established, this will provide some screening from Station Road. This is just some of the photographs.
Apologies, we seem to be having a few technical issues at the moment, so please bear with us.
They show the area where the extension will be going. It will be in front and at the rear of where the offshot two-storey extension is already, and it'll basically go up to where the planter is on the floor there, so that that will be the extent of it. Just show the next. Right, that's just the rear boundary with the Dale cottages. As you can see, it's over 1.8 metres in height, and that's just a view from Station Road of the access. That just shows the bin provision there was a question yesterday. And as you can see, the extension, it won't affect where the bins are located. It doesn't go up to that window, so that it won't be affected. Just put that photo. And that's just the side garden where the landscaping will go. And that's the rear, as you can see, it's obviously elevated going up. So number 7, it's on an elevated position, so the extension will have less of an impact anyway because it'll be lower down. And then the gardens of the Dale cottages is shown in the right hand side one. And they are at a slightly lower level, but again their gardens go up, and the site is down, so it won't be that visible. And that's just the front elevations, but it's not impacted, so there'll be no impacts with the front. That's the end of the presentation, if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you for that. We've got Councillor Ian Pearson, who was a ward member, has requested to speak in opposition to the application. It's now your opportunity to address the committee for up to 5 minutes. Please press the large red button when you want to speak, and again to mute your microphone when you've finished, and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
Is it working? Yes? Thank you very much. I'm first of all going to say, are you sure it's Station Road that you're talking about and not Dale Avenue, the views that you've just been discussing, as one comment? This site has been a site of considerable concern to ward councillors for many years, and actually was raised with the planning tribunal in relation to its licence, and was under review for a year. So that needs to be noted as well. The description of the land, it is lower, but the recreational space that will be taken up and the parking space is an area that has led to numerous complaints because the residents use it. And if this extension takes place, the recreational use for the 14 residents and staff will significantly be reduced. I have to say, the comments you make from highways I find appalling, because there are a number of complaints with highways about major parking obstructions that lead to the dustbin lorries not even being able to get up and down the side of the site. So I'm amazed and worried that our highways engineers have not taken on the concerns raised for the triangle below the site. This site, as I say, has been causing great upset to residents because of the amount of noise. I heard the comments about it not being any greater. Well, you want to try living there, because if you take away the recreational space to make the building, then the residents are going to be pushed into a smaller area to have their parties, their drink and what have you, that has led to complaints and police involvement previously. So I am deeply concerned that removing recreational space for those residents is going to cause greater concern for the local residents. Strangely, you haven't mentioned that there is significant historic involvement in land adjacent and possibly where 1 to 5 is now, that's been around for about 2,500 years, and there's been a number of digs in history. No protection for a review on that at all. It's also not making any comment about ensuring that this extension can be converted for other use, including adding extra residents, something that I think at least should be included, that it can only be used for the specified reason and cannot be converted. The whole area, as I said, we had more than 100 people who were upset when this application was originally submitted, and that's why I suspect it's previously been withdrawn. So I would really ask that the committee refuse this application, get some more work. One other thing I'm going to add is, of course, that a number of the local residents find that in bad weather, their cellars are flooded because of the underground water stream that again runs in that area and has caused the road to explode previously outside 1 to 5 because of the water pressure. Something, again, I'm surprised Northern Water didn't mention that they've got real drainage problems outside the building.
1 minute remaining.
Thank you. The other thing I would say is please consider the residents and the amount of noise disturbance that will take place. By allowing this build, you're going to be putting a lot more stress on the local residents that have lived there under duress previously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that, Councillor Pearson. Do we have any members of the committee that would like to ask Councillor Pearson any questions? Councillor Hogarth.
Councillor Pearson, on the that land currently being used by the residents for recreational purposes?
Yes. They've had parties and had drinks and what have you when the weather permits, and we've had them doing whatever where the car parks is as well, including using it as a toilet. So they use it for all sorts of things.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you for that, Councillor Pearson. We've got a Mr. John Alcock on behalf of the applicant has requested to speak in support of the application. If you'd like to come down. This is now your opportunity to address the committee for up to 5 minutes. Please press the large red button when you wish to start and press it again to mute the microphone, and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
What I would like to say is that we send a lot of emails to the police regards antisocial behaviour because of all the so-called incidents that happen. I'll just give you 1 or 2 examples. 22nd December, the last PAC meeting of the year, Wraparound are proud of the fact that we at 1 to 5 Elm Green Lane have not had 1 incident of antisocial behaviour brought to our attention from either the police or our neighbours. We aim to continue this good work. That's just that one for starters. These go to the Christopher MacLeod, the main officer in the area. I'll go back to 3rd of December 22. I just want to report another month with no reports of antisocial behaviour either within the property or the surrounding area. This is for record purposes only. It goes on and on and on. November 22nd, we have no complaints for antisocial behaviour or any other incidents at 1 to 5 Elm Green Lane through October. It just goes on and on. We take it seriously when anybody makes a complaint. We don't want to see 1 antisocial behaviour problem. The classroom does not create more noise. It helps us to educate people who've had a bad life start. And what we aim to do, we do it already, want to do it even better. We want to get them into a classroom. We've got people who can't read and write. We want to teach them how to budget, and then we move them on into the community so they're not going back on the streets. This is all part of wraparound plan. A classroom does not make noise. It will not be, it cannot be changed for extra accommodation, as Ian well knows. If I was to try to put a room in it, A, I couldn't get any money for it. B, the council would be down my throat. I don't get it. Now, when it comes to talking about incidents in the area, and they will move further away to create more room, surely putting a classroom in stops the problem. We've complied with everything. We work with our neighbours. If these incidents had been true, why haven't either councillor here there, the police, the anti-social behaviour people, why have they knocked on our door and said, John, can you check these incidents? We have none. I can only quote email after email after email. You know, facts. There ain't much more I've got to say. So, like I say, I believe that people should have a chance in life to improve their lifestyle, and that's what we aim to do. We take them to all appointments. We've stopped reoffending in our property by nearly 100% in 5 years. Ian doesn't know that, but that's a fact. When I saw last week on the paper, the first time on Thursday, it said 8 incidents last year recorded at our house. What incidents? Nobody could reflect on anything. Nobody can give me any information what they are. There's a perception about on Green Lane, or 1 to 5 on Green Lane. Somebody coughs loud on the drive. Somebody rings up, antisocial behaviour. We check every incident that are reported to us. We have noise monitors outside. If somebody's swearing or abusive, our monitors pick it up, and I've got a 3-month cycle. Anybody, the police, Ian, any of these colleagues, Lana, Ball, and other ones, they can all come to us, give us an incident, and we'll check it out and confirm it, whether yes or no. If it's any of our incident, any of our tenants, we throw them out. You know, we're not there to upset people, we're there to work with people. And we've gradually started to win 1 or 2 over on Daleview, funnily enough. I've had 1 or 2 thank me for what we've been doing this last few years. You know, and it's not been easy. We did make mistakes in the past. When Ian started off many years ago, the property was taken over from Action Housing, who left it in a terrible state. And we had to live with that. And gradually we've got rid of all those tenants and put them in. We put people in that actually want help. Our young lady there, planning officer, came the other week. You saw 1 or 2 people, normal people, not people that's high off the head on drink or drugs. They just want to improve their life and have the opportunity to be educated. They come to our property and they can't read and write. They can't do the universal credit. And it's a struggle for us. That's why we need the classroom. That's all it is. There's no extra accommodation. I don't know why anybody believes there should be. Our house has got accommodation, HMO licence for 15 people, and it's checked regularly.
Thank you very much. For
and
that,
like I said before, we cannot put anybody in. We can't get money to put anybody in. Because we get money for 15 tenants.
That's your 5 minutes now, so I appreciate that. If you just press the large red button, that'll turn your microphone off.
Pardon?
If you press the large red button, I'm just going to ask the committee now if they've got any questions for you. Yeah. So if you wait there, right, Councillor Beach.
Yes, Mr. Alcock, I may be a little confused, but the summary on the front page of the application says the erection of a ground floor rear extension to create a shared activity room and small courtyard, yet you are saying it's a classroom.
Shared activity room is a generalisation of a name.
If you press, thank you.
It's a generalisation of a classroom. We're going to be able to put people there. We collect books. And we've got people who want to read and write and learn. And we're putting a big television in there. That's what we want to do. So people can go in there. We've got camera supervision in there. That's what it'll have. We can teach people to read and write. We can do activities with our tenants. There's no any extra people coming into the property. That is not going to change at all. It's just for our tenants to improve their lifestyle, to give them the opportunity to move into the wide community. We already put people in properties around Doncaster and we still monitor them. You know, this is something else Ian won't know because obviously it's not his area, but this is all part of what we do. This is going to enhance what we do and give people a better chance in life. You know, that's all it is.
Thank you for that, Mr. Clark. Do we have any other questions that we'd like to ask? Councillor Hogarth.
Do the current tenants use that area for recreational purposes? Do the current tenants use the area you're hoping to build this classroom on as for recreational purposes?
Our tenants don't use the areas outside, and I'll tell you for why. A few years ago, there was a barbecue on. A neighbour rang up and said, there's effing and blinding. At the time, a police officer was in the yard socialising with our tenants. So we proved that to be a slight untruth. But since then, we've gone to the other extreme. We've not had a barbecue since, nothing in that courtyard at all.
Okay, if you press your large red button again for me, Mr. Alcock, it'll turn it off.
Okay.
If you press
Thank
the large
you.
red button again.
Do you want those?
No, if you press the large red button again for me, please. Thank you. Right. Does anybody else have any questions? No. Okay, thank you. Committee members, we're now going to go into debate. Is there any questions that you want to ask the officer or between yourselves? Councillor Anderson?
Can I just confirm that there's protections here to make sure it can't be turned into more accommodation? As we've had it from both sides that it's a concern, and Mr. Alcock says it can't be done. I just want to confirm that that's all.
Sorry, Chair, it's not being recorded.
Right. We are proposing a planning condition that the room is restricted for residents and staff, so you know they can't let it out for parties or whatever. But in terms of they'd have to apply for planning permission, and they'd also need a licence, a HMO licence, if they were to increase the number of residents. So.
Do we have any other questions? Councillor Hogarth.
Looking on the maps on page 106, 107, you can't see any activity inside or anywhere on the maps. So there must be activities in the
I think the point with that is that the site as a whole is the planning unit, and that has a lawful use for the HMO. So they can use that site for that lawful purpose. It doesn't necessarily need to be specified on that plan that they've got an area that they use as a garden or anything similar to that. I think the point is that what we need to make sure we're looking at with this application is the impacts of the extension rather than the historic use that is lawful. So there may well be a certain amount of activity, comings and goings from the HMO, and that's lawful. But the impacts of the extension bring that inside. Those activities will be happening in that space as has been described to you. And if there were any instances of antisocial behaviour or similar because people were being displaced across the wider site, for example, then that would be something that would be covered by the licence separately.
Do we have any further questions? Therefore, is there a proposal to grant planning permission subject to the conditions? Is there a mover for the application, please? I'll move it. Is there a seconder? That's been seconded by Councillor Beach. Can we have a show of hands of those in favour for the application? Those against? And abstentions? Therefore, the application has been approved subject to conditions. Before we go on to planning application 4, I'm just going to ask if it's okay with my committee members if we have a 5-minute toilet break. Is that okay by everybody? Is that agreed? Agreed. So it is now 14:54. So if we're back for 3 p.m, 5 minutes. Thank you. Okay, everybody, we're all back. We're now up to planning application number 4. 23/02097/FUL, which is the installation of a dropped curb to a classified road, the A19, with being a resubmission of application 23/00174/FUL, withdrawn on the 20th of March 23 at 26 Doncaster Road in Asken. Nathan Ward is the planning case officer that is introducing this item. Over to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so as as Chair has mentioned, this application seeks to install a drop curb onto the A19 Doncaster Road as you head into Asken. This item has been submitted to committee due to local ward member interest. Relevant planning history as stated. It was submitted at the beginning of March, and then following Highways Development Control comments to the previous application, it was subsequently withdrawn. So in terms of the principle of the development, policy 13 of the local plan states that proposals will be supported where development does not result in unacceptable impacts on highway safety or severe residual cumulative impacts on the highway network. Policies 41A, 42B and 44B all seek for development to integrate well with the immediate and surrounding environment. And policy 42B states that developments will be supported where it considers access points, street design, parking and operational highways requirements safely cater for pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles. And in terms of relevant NPPF paragraphs, paragraph 114B states that in accessing sites that may be allocated for development in plans or specific applications for development, it should be ensured that there is safe and suitable access to the site can be achieved for all users. Paragraph 115 states that development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe. Paragraph 135A states that planning decisions should ensure that developments will function well and add to the overall quality of the area. And paragraph 139 states that development that is not well designed should be refused, especially where it fails to reflect local design policies and government guidance on design. So as you can see from the site plan, the 26 Doncaster Road directly abuts the A19. Directly opposite the site is a large Furniture World store, and it's not very clearly shown on the map, but directly across from the site is the access into the car park for this store. There is also the junction with, I believe it's Manor Way or Manor Road. So this is, again, an aerial view of the site. As you can see, there is currently a large shared driveway and access. The aerial view is slightly outdated because it does show a front garden to the site, but as you can see from this site, the front garden has now been surfaced and is now gravel. So the application is actually seeking to install the drop curb. Floor plans don't really show it, but it's proposed to, the proposal is to demolish the wall to create a new centralised access and drop the curb between the two existing drop curbs on the classified road. So one of two scenarios could happen here. It could either introduce one long drop curb along the road, or it could just lead to multiple drop curbs within close proximity of each other, leading to less access or less refuge for pedestrians. So here are the consultation responses to the proposal. Highways Development Control have objected to the proposal. They've objected to the principle of introducing a new centralised access as shown. However, they have said they would support a widening of the existing access to safely cater for any turning provisions that the applicant may need. Highways Road Safety were further consulted, and they agreed with Highways Development Control's interpretation of the proposal and had no additional comments to make. The Parish Council had no comments. Northern Gas had no objections to the proposal as it wouldn't affect any pipe works, and Yorkshire Water had no comments to make. So a summary of the proposal is that due to, as Highways Development Control would not support a new centralised access, as it would be, in their view, harmful to highways and pedestrian safety, as residents would have nowhere to wait while cars try and enter and egress the site. There is also the risk that it would disrupt traffic flow, as drivers along the road wouldn't be able to see which access, or it wouldn't be expressly clear which access the applicants and other drivers would be using to enter and egress the site. That could cause quite significant disruption due to the fact that this is a very highly busy and highly congested road. So while the applicants would benefit, there would be some personal benefit to them, the harm to highway safety and pedestrian safety would outweigh that private benefit. So therefore, on balance, the proposal is considered to contravene Local Plan Policy 13, 41, 42 and 44, and paragraphs 114B, 115, 135 should be on there, my apologies, and 139 of the MPPS. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Nathan. We've got Councillor Austin White, who's a ward member, who's requested to speak in support of the application. You've got up to 5 minutes. Please press the large red button when you're ready to start, and I'll let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
I'd like to provide some history and some context regarding this application, which will help the committee to understand why Mr Hughes and myself are here today. Number 26 Doncaster Road is located on the A19, the main road running into Doncaster from North Yorkshire. It is just inside the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit as you enter Askham from the south. And you'll guess correctly, the speed limit is rarely adhered to. Vehicles large and small speed past number 26 and the neighbouring properties. The property also lies between two side roads, Manor and Sutton Road, which join the A19, and there are a number of adjoining properties with drives and some without. There is an existing shared driveway with number 25, which is also the pedestrian pathway to the rear of the properties. It can be seen from the site plan 1 to 500 scale and the location plan 1 to 1250 that it is not an equal division between the two properties. Of the 4.6 metres between the two properties, approximately 2.9 is with number 25 and 1.7 is with number 26. Shared drives may sound okay, but the reality is users want to go in and out at different times, leading to operational difficulties and disagreements. The applicant engaged with CDC regarding the provision of an additional private access from the A19 to the front of their property, and that's CDC Highways, the construction side. An engineer attended site, discussed the options, and the current proposal was arrived at. It was agreed that this provision would improve the access and associated safety. The cost was provided and accepted. The works were explained and CDC would be carrying them out. New drop curbs, new crossover to the footpath and the grass verge. The applicant to remove a section of the wall, all sorted. The engineer informed the applicant that planning permission is required in this case due to the A19's classification. Currently cars are parking on the A19 on the footpath, which prevents clear viewing from the two-side road and the existing driveway. A very dangerous situation which is compounded by the speed of the A19 traffic. South Yorkshire Police are aware of this situation and have recently written to residents requesting that cars and vans are parked on driveways. Owners who think they are helping traffic to move along the A19 by parking on the footpath will be fined by South Yorkshire Planning. So, the planning application was made by the applicant. It's appreciated that the submitted site plan access lacks some detail, and the Highways Officer says he cannot undertake a full assessment of the proposal. We consider the points made are pedantic, and information could have been gleaned from the other supporting documents and the site visit. The width of the shared drive was requested. Well, that can be assessed and seen on site or from the scale drawings. And it refers to an existing garage. There is no existing garage. The front garden was noted as the existing usage. The construction of the drive was expected, the construction detail of the drive was expected to be decided at a later date between the council and the applicant. Existing boundary treatments can clearly be seen on the site. They are to be retained with a section removed for access. Widening of the shared access does not resolve the issues with the shared drive. Having the need for its use by different parties at different times, causing operational problems. Accepted that the grass verge wasn't noted on the plan, however it's clearly visible on site and obviously has to be retained. The council's construction engineer responsible for the construction of the
1 minute remaining.
informed the applicant all works will be done by the council, and the applicant assumed this would be a compulsory requirement. The works are disproportionately expensive because of that, but the client accepted it. He wanted to make the situation much more safer, not only for himself. And we think it improves a positive improvement for the existing highway and the traffic. It improves the safety of residents, contrary to what the officer said, because there will be areas where there is a refuge between the three drives, if you like, the three drives along there. And that was agreed with the construction engineer. The provision of the parking area will allow the applicants to leave forwards rather than reversing. And the applicant wants the access to be the same as their neighbours at number 27 and 28. It's not centralised, it's over to one side. So the applicant is caring, is a responsible resident, is caring for others, is committed to improving an unsafe position.
Thank you for that, Councillor White. Your 5 minutes is up. Apologies. Are there any members of the committee that would like to ask Councillor White a question? No? Okay, thank you very much for that submission. I've now got a Mr. Michael Hughes, the applicant, that has requested to speak in support of the application. This is now your opportunity to address the committee for up to 5 minutes. Please press the red button when you want to speak, and again to mute the microphone when you've concluded, and I will let you know when you've got 1 minute remaining.
All my concern is about my wife and my grandkids. They're reversing onto a main road, and if anything's overtaking them when they're pulling out, they can't see because of parked cars. There's going to be a major accident. That is my concern. Police have told them to put it on the driveways. Nobody seems to be taking any notice. There's more houses getting built, more traffic. There's houses what's just getting built 300 yards down the road. So that means there's going to be more vehicles up and down that A19. And if anything happens to my kids, God forbid, because that's what hand on me, I think that's what's going to happen. My wife's going to be reversing out like that with kids it back. There's somebody going to be overtaking somebody because they see a speed limit and they can go for it, and there's going to be a bad accident there. That's my concern.
Thank you for that, Mr. Hughes. Does any of the committee have any questions for Mr. Hughes? Okay. We're therefore going to go into the debate section of the agenda, and does any of the committee members wish to make a comment or ask the case officer a question? Councillor Beach.
Yes, I've already declared that I am one of the members for this area. My comment is that in the presentation, Nathan said that a severe residual impact. Well, to me, the severe residual impact is the fact that the cars, by police notice, have to park on the street, not partly on the pavement, on the street. So therefore, that road, though it's an A19, and though you think of a big white road, it is actually 3 cars wide. Not 2 cars in a lorry, it's 3 cars wide. And very often you've got lorries heading for the 30 sign, going too fast. And if cars come in the other way, you've got a situation where, oh, can I get through? The other thing is Sutton Road, which turns out at an angle onto the road through going north. The visibility at night, you've got lights on cars. You can see the lights. In the daytime, particularly weekend, you can't see the traffic coming until it's upon you because of the parked cars. Bearing in mind that everyone in Ascot now even has to go up Sutton Road to a post office. Never mind the little shop and the chip shop. We have no post office except up Sutton Road. So therefore there's more traffic than ever there. And I think that letting this gentleman put his car on his frontage is the safest way for the people driving through, and particularly for people coming out of Sutton Road, because you just can't see, believe you me, because I do it quite often.
Thank you for that, Councillor Beach. Councillor Hogarth, I'll let you come back in a minute, Nathan, and see what Councillor Hogarth has to say.
Yeah, I think it will be safer by having this extra access. And I just wonder, you know, as long as there's no blockage of the existing access, I do think it's safer having this existing access. It will reduce the need to reverse. As well, this is known from highways to debate it though. Oh yeah, but I do think it is safer being able to get on and drive out, and I think it's a lot safer. I don't know what you think.
The first thing is we would support people being able to park on off the road, so it's not against that. It's the principle of being able to drive on forward and drive off forward. So I think the suggestion about not having it in the central position where it's been proposed, if it was more towards where the current sort of access is, but sort of adjacent, you know, sort of joining onto that, that then allows the car to be able to do a manoeuvre within the curtilage and then drive out forward. I would absolutely agree that reversing out onto the A19 would be extremely risky, particularly with the parked cars as well, because if the parked cars are there, then your visibility makes it even more difficult. That's why we wouldn't support that. Now, when you put a driveway in like this, if someone feels under pressure by the traffic and decides to drive in, they're then in the position where they have to reverse out. So the whole point about when we're particularly with a classified road and the speed and the volume of traffic is that we want to encourage it so that they can drive in a forward gear, be able to manoeuvre so that you can drive out. And I think it's possible on that particular thing. It just might need a bit of adjustment. I think the highways officer who reviewed this has actually suggested that there is a solution that would be supportive.
Do we have any other questions?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sorry. Just going to let Nathan come in.
So I don't know if we could get the PowerPoint back up, but does anybody know how to do that? Oh. So yeah, as Steve has helpfully said, we're not against the idea of widening the existing access. We're against the idea of creating a new access. So as you can see from the front, there is clearly a car parked on that side driveway. Now, given that the front of the front that was formerly a garden has been sort of gravelled, I appreciate it wouldn't be the easiest manoeuvre to pull off. But if a car was to reverse down that driveway and then turn at the front of the property, they could then leave in a forward gear without the formation of a new access, and the widening of the existing access would only make that easier, in my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Beach.
Yes, I was going to ask for that to be put up again. Yeah, I appreciate that probably another access is not ideal, but nevertheless, if that was created, there is still place for people, if you see a car coming, to halt while they manoeuvre in. I mean, it's the same in any street. Where I live, there's two drives. If somebody's passing by, then they have to wait, basically, especially if there's a bus coming. So I don't see the problem. I think it's eminently sensible to have a parking area for all of the properties along there, as far as it's well, I should think it's possible for all of them, because the A19 is busy and getting busier, and so many lorries. That's the trouble.
Thank you. I actually, I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to fetch you in at this time. I actually see what the officer is stating, and I fully understand the comments that he's made regarding safety. By extending the existing access would allow you to drive in and then do a manoeuvre to make sure you can turn to drive out. Then you're not removing the dropped curb further down, which means that people automatically between the houses can stop for the cars coming out. It gives them less space. So if you're on a mobility scooter or in a wheelchair, or you have a pram, by extending and creating a new access, you're limiting that part of the path. So I actually think that the compromise that the officer has put forward to extend the existing one actually makes sense to me. And where I live, I've got a shared access onto a small road, which is, I have to reverse out onto the road where the police station is, you know, and I fully understand people need to be safe, and I have been to ask, and I know that's a busy road, but by creating a complete, my opinion, by creating a completely new access, then with our pedestrians then at risk, I think there has to be a common sense ground. And for me, what the officers suggested as a compromise to extend the existing one makes sense, but that's my view.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have to agree with the Chair that what the planning officers proposed as an alternative is the better option of the two. And because we've got to keep everybody safe, and extending this and giving that other option, we've got another option. You know, not in a lot of circumstances we don't have another option, but this safeguards everybody. Thank you.
Do we have any other comments? Okay. Therefore, is there a proposal to refuse planning permission? Is there a mover for the recommendation, please? There's no mover to refuse it. May I make a suggestion, committee, to defer the application for the planning officer to speak with the applicant regarding the expansion of the existing entry, and if need be for a site visit to get the impact? Would that be something that the committee would be minded to support? Yeah. Therefore, I put as a secondary proposal, I put forward that we actually defer the decision on this and ask for the planning officer to speak with the applicant regarding the alternative that's been suggested, and for a site visit so we can actually see the actual entrance and the access onto the A19 and the gap between the houses for pedestrians. Is there a seconder for that proposal? And can we have a show of hands for those in agreement? Therefore, that proposal has been passed. Thank you. Item 6 is the appeal decision. This is a report for information only. Does any member wish to speak on this item? Therefore, can I ask that the committee move that this report be noted? Is that agreed? Thank you. Item 7 is planning enforcement quarterly report. Again, this report is for information only. Nicole Jackson, the planning enforcement officer, will introduce the item. Nicole.
Thank you, Chair. So yeah, this enforcement report that's presented today, it's for the third quarter of the 23-24 year, which covers from the 1st of October 23 to the 31st of December. The report is just a snapshot of the works undertaken by the planning enforcement team. It includes the total cases still under investigation, as well as any new cases logged, and the number of cases that we've closed down. The team has seen in that quarter 3 successful prosecutions, as well as 4 notices that has been served. So yeah, I'm happy to assist where I can if you've got any questions in relation to this report.
Committee, do we have any questions? No? No questions? That's fantastic. Oh, Councillor Hogarth.
Page 161 regarding 48 Jubilee Road Weekly. Has access been got yet, or, and if not, what's the next step?
Just bringing that report up, I won't be a moment. Yeah, so the last report was, update, sorry, was from December 23, saying that we've tried on various occasions to enter the property in order to investigate. I think what the case officer will need to do now is, whether that's, you know, like a notice of intended entry, giving the occupants or the owner the opportunity to be there on a pre-arranged date and time.
But what's the, you know, what's the time? Bearing this is going on from January last year.
I can certainly ask the case officer that question.
And they haven't been able to get access from 30th of September, or previous to 30th, and yet surely something should happen. You know, they're not, it's obvious that people are not, the owner's not letting them in, so why do they have to, how long do they have to wait before they say, oh, we'll go for forced entry?
Like I said, I'll note it down and I'll certainly ask the case officer and ask her to get in contact with yourself. That's not a problem.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? No, therefore, committee members, can we move that the report be noted? And it's agreed. Thank you for that. Members, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the business at today's meeting. I'd like to thank everyone for their attendance and input and now declare the meeting closed.